Hello, it's Randi Rhodes. Here's a clip from our show, and go to randyrhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.
Mary had a little man.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe it.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
This whole process stinks. At every step along the way, the Republicans have made it clear, no matter her inexperience, no matter her radical views, no matter her potential conflicts of interest, no matter her secrecy, no matter her blowing off basic anti-corruption practices, they will ram this nomination down the throats of the American people sideways. Here are just a few egregious examples. First, committee Democrats were allotted 5 minutes total during her hearing to question Betsy DeVos on her troubling record. Republicans suddenly invented a new rule that we couldn't ask additional questions. You know, this is an important job. I asked President Obama's Secretary of Education multiple rounds of questions, and he had led a public education system in the past. But I guess when a Republican nominee and a mega donor is in line to run education policy, we're all just supposed to fall in line and keep quiet. Second, breaking with standard practice and what we did for President Obama's education nominees, we were forced to hold Betsy DeVos's hearing before the ethics review of her billions was completed. The complicated ethics review raised a ton of additional questions. But we got absolutely no chance to question her about it. Third, Betsy DeVos is the first nominee ever to go through the Help Committee who has flat out refused to fully disclose her financial holdings. She will be the first nominee in recent history to hold secret trusts. She was supposed to complete a form that requires nominees to list in detail all of their assets, investments, and debts, so that the committee has a full understanding of the nominee's potential conflicts of interest. Nope. She wants to keep many of her holdings in a family trust a secret. So she just won't tell. And fourth, Republicans ignored and overrode the rules of the Senate in order to barely squeeze the DeVos nomination out of committee as quickly as possible. And now, with at least 50 senators, Democrats, Republicans, and independents publicly opposed to this nomination, the Republican leadership has rigged the vote so that Senator Sessions can drag her across the finish line just before he is confirmed as Attorney General. Why is Senator Sessions even voting on this nomination? It is a massive conflict of interest. As the AG, Sessions will be responsible for enforcing the law against DeVos if her cesspool of unresolved financial conflicts results in illegal behavior. But apparently, the Republicans just don't care. Let's face it, the Republican leadership wants DeVos, and they are willing to ignore her hostility to public schools, willing to ignore her indifference to laws that protect special needs kids, willing to ignore the giant ethical cloud that hangs over her, ignore it all so that billionaire and Republican campaign contributor Betsy DeVos can be Secretary of Education.
Beautiful. I told you, Jeff Sessions was held over in the Senate. Why was he even there to vote for? It was just so 50-50. Two Republicans actually voted against her, both women. You had Murkowski from Alaska, and of course you had Susan Collins from Maine joining with the independents and the Democrats in the Senate to vote against her. And Jeff Sessions was left in the Senate, even though he is the next person to be confirmed, and he'll be confirmed as Attorney General. And he will oversee, Betsy DeVos's, bull crap, all her secret family trusts and her defunding of the public school education system in order to give vouchers to families and tell them, okay, if you can make up the difference, then you can take your kid and put him in a charter school, or you could put your kid in a religious school, which is fine, except we never defunded public schools in order to help parents that wanted to send their kids to private schools. Now all of a sudden the public schools are going to be defunded so that parents can, have a voucher worth X. And if they can make the difference. Also, Betsy DeVos, I got to say, she has been confirmed, as you now know, by virtue of Mike Pence breaking a tie in the Senate, something that's never happened before for a cabinet member. Never. I mean, that was historical, and it was hysterical that they had to do it because the Senate received so many freaking phone calls saying, please do not make this woman Secretary of Education. We had no earthly idea that Trump was going to do this, that he was going to defund public schools and privatize the whole system at the expense of, every kid that can't afford to go to a private school. But so she's confirmed as Secretary of Education. The other fact that was confirmed today is that anybody can be a cabinet member in a Trump administration as long as they throw money around. And enough of it. Sick. It's so sick. This woman has zero experience in banking. She will now oversee a $1 trillion student loan program inside the Department of Education, but she does also own a student loan company that, makes interest off of those student loans. So she's conflicted already, but, we won't have an attorney general who gives a rat's ass because he voted for her. And now he's going to be confirmed as Attorney General. But of course, they gamed the system to hold him there in the Senate. And I swear to God, I'm the only person that pointed this out. I know I am. And today at the press conference, the Sean Spicer, the Lie Fest, the 2-minute hate every afternoon that we have to now be subject to with the lies just, spewing from this man's cinnamon scented mouth. It's just unbelievable. Anyway, he said, this just further proves that the Democrats this and the Democrats that. No, there were two Republicans that joined the Democrats who said no. And there would have been more, but I promise you, Mitch McConnell only allowed two members to peel off because he knew that he had the Pence vote in the bag. And so he allowed these two to say no, but he didn't allow anybody else because yesterday there was a rumor that Senator John McCain was going to vote against her. I don't know what happened to his spine, but, that was, a rumor that we would get one more. And that's why the senators stayed and held the floor yesterday for 24 hours to make these remarks that they made ahead of the vote. They were looking for one more Republican to join them. And they almost found one, and then they didn't. So she's now your Secretary of Education, and I'll tell you, she is so deeply dysfunctional on every level. This brings us back to the original vetting of Betsy DeVos that we did here with the Detroit Free Press article that says that she was an abject failure in Detroit, that all that was left, the only high school left in Detroit, the only public school left in Detroit is Detroit Community Schools. It is in Brightmoor, the only high school left is Detroit Community Schools, a charter boasting more than a decade, 10 years of abysmal test scores, and until recently a superintendent who earned $130,000 a year despite a dearth of educational experience and or credentials. Number two, on the west side of Detroit, another charter school, Hope Academy, has been serving the community around Grand River and Livernois for 20 years. Its test scores have been among the lowest in the state throughout these 2 decades. In 2013, the school ranked in the first percentile, which is the absolute bottom for academic performance. And 2 years later, its charter was renewed. And number three, if you live in downtown Detroit, you might want to try Woodward Academy, a charter school that's limped along near the bottom of school achievement since 1998, while its operator has been allowed to expand into other communities. That is Betsy DeVos's record, and it's about to be spread across these United States. So there you have it. We had a little history made this morning by Mike Pence breaking the tie and Senator Jeff Sessions being held over by the Republicans to rig the vote, even though he should not have been allowed to vote for her because he is going to be the Attorney General whose job it will be to enforce the laws against Betsy DeVos if and when she finally files her financials. And yes, they were only allowed 5 minutes to ask any questions that they had about Betsy DeVos in the Senate hearings. And it was a disaster. And the most amazing questions I thought were asked by Maggie Hassan, the new senator from New Hampshire, formerly the governor, who has a child with cerebral palsy who goes to public school. And her questioning of Betsy DeVos is one for the record books. It truly is. I mean, she asked her about IDEA, which is, the Disability Education Act that protects all students that go to public schools and demands that they be educated right alongside their non-disabled peers. And, Hassan was asking her questions about, and she didn't know what IDEA was. She had no earthly idea that there's an obligation to take all comers who go to public school. She was so misinformed, disinformed, uninformed. Perfect for a Trump administration. Just delicious. But that's done until we can, actually, figure out a way to remove her, which I'm sure we can do, as soon as she starts acting, as soon as she starts doing what Betsy DeVos does. I promise you, parents all over this country are going to be out in the streets demanding her removal. I promise you, this woman is dangerous to the future of America in this way. Education and information is the coin of the realm, and our kids will not have that coin, and they will not be able to function in this realm of high science, math, STEM, all this, Okay, so then the next thing up is this president. Okay, this president who is he's blaming everybody. Okay, he blamed a judge, of course, on Sunday and Monday. He was out there tweeting. He's sitting in his bathrobe, apparently, according to several sources within the White House that are leaking to the press because they find his behavior freaky and insufferable and frightening. So they are sharing their experiences with him thus far. 2 weeks that he's been living there alone, padding around the White House in his bathrobe after 6:30 at night, watching the shows and tweeting about them. And, dozens and dozens of White House staffers have talked to the Washington Post and the New York Times, and they created this report that has really got his, his panties in a bunch. I mean, they are just... Anyway, so, on Sunday, he started tweeting, and he was trying to, prepare us for a possible terrorist attack by way of telling us who to blame for it before it even happens. And, of course, his motto is blame others, which is just so... I don't know. It's very Harry Truman. The buck stops over there. It's just amazing. If something happens, he said, you can blame this judge who's hearing the case, as we speak. You can blame him and the court system for any terror attacks. Because he says Muslims are pouring in. I don't see the pouring in, but whatever. What is this? This is the buck stops over there. The buck stops anywhere but on my desk. So what is he going to say when there is a terrorist attack in the United States? I told you so? Is that his response? Is that what it's going to be? Is he going to address the people from the Oval Office and go, well, it wasn't me. It wasn't my fault. Seriously? And the Trump supporters, what are they going to do when there's a terrorist attack? Congratulate him? Say, I told you so? I mean, this is going to be the response. This is how much he's carved up our country. This is how vile his presence has been. This is how bad his influence has been across our country. It's just unbelievable. And then yesterday, okay, this really took the cake. Then yesterday, he's at CENTCOM. Okay, talking to our freaking troops who aren't even supposed to be or allowed to be political. And he tells them that the media doesn't report terror attacks. This is what he tells them. The media doesn't report terror attacks. And according to Trump, he said, in many cases, the very, very dishonest press doesn't want to report it. Right. That makes sense. The media would rather not have built-in ratings bait terror attacks on the TV. They'd rather watch Kellyanne Conway make up fake terror attacks like the Bowling Green Massacre or watch Sean Spicer talk in circles. Yeah, that makes sense. So we invited Dean Obeidallah on the show because he wrote a piece in the Daily Beast documenting terror attacks in the United States that support Donald Trump when Donald Trump says that the media doesn't report terror attacks. Yes, somebody who supports that claim is going to be on this show speaking to us right after the break, 22 after.
All things Randy at RandyRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Now that Trump's on his way to the White House, how long do you think it's going to take him and his Wall Street cronies to completely wreck our economy? This Trump administration is greedy, full of avarice, and awful, and the damage they're going to do to the economy will become legend. They are going to make the financial crisis of 2008 look like a pool party. And once again, working class Americans, you're going to get soaked. And that's why now more than ever, it's time to diversify your investment portfolio. Gold's low correlation with stocks and bonds can help you in times of uncertainty. Just call my friends at ITM Trading today, get a free gold kit, and learn why gold survives every government, every currency, and every economic crisis. Call ITM Trading at 1-888-OWN-GOLD for guidance from their precious metals experts. They've helped tens of thousands of people navigate this market, and they have the best reputation in this industry. So call 1-888-OWN-GOLD, 1-888-OWN-GOLD.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1894. That was the day gold miners in Cripple Creek, Colorado, walked out on strike. Mine owners increased the workday from 8 to 10 hours. They refused to increase workers' pay accordingly. Workers immediately affiliated with the Western Federation of Miners. Local 19 leader John Calderwood demanded a return to the 8-hour day at the previous wage, but the mine owners refused. About 6 weeks into the strike, the larger gold mines imported scabs. Violence soon followed. The El Paso County Sheriff demanded the governor call out the state militia. But Colorado's Governor Davis Waite was a populist. He recalled the troops upon learning that they would be used as strikebreakers. Soon, the mine owners raised their own private army of 100 troops, which grew to over 1,200. By May, miners had armed themselves. They took over a mine in Victor and blew it up when deputies arrived with scabs. Governor Waite ordered the owners' private army disbanded and called the militia out to defend the strikers. Mine owners agreed to return to the 8-hour workday at no loss in pay, but refused to disband their army. They arrested and beat hundreds of miners. The owners finally disbanded the forces when the governor threatened the militia's presence in Victor for a month to keep the scab army immobilized. It was the first and probably only time a state militia was called out in defense of striking workers. According to Eric Loomis, it was arguably labor's biggest win in the Gilded Age. Waite lost the next election, but the victory meant enormous organizing gains for the Western Federation of Miners throughout the Rocky Mountain region.
Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
For a commercial-free, on-demand, whenever, wherever listening experience, visit RandyRhodes.com for your personal premium podcast today.
You've seen what happened in Paris and Nice. All over Europe, it's happening. It's gotten to a point where it's not even being reported. And in many cases, the very, very dishonest press doesn't want to report it. They have their reasons, and you understand that.
What the... All right, let's talk to Dean Obeidallah, who I'm sure you've seen on CNN. I'm sure you've seen him, read him in the Daily Beast if you read. And Dean Obeidallah actually says Donald Trump is sort of right. There are terrorist attacks that are not being reported, and the media probably has their reasons. Dean, explain.
Yes, you got it, Randy. It's not often I agree with Donald Trump, but obviously it's not ultimately agreeing with him. He is right. The media does not report every terrorist plot or attack with the gusto it should.
Why not? Why not, Dean?
Well, here's the thing, Randy. It's because the terrorists involved are not Muslim,
but
right-wing terrorists or self-professed Christian terrorists. In fact, on the very day, yesterday, Donald Trump was talking about the media doesn't cover this stuff. What was going on in a federal court in Tennessee? A trial began of a man named Robert Doggett. No one knows his name. You should know his name. The media has ignored it. He's a self-professed Christian minister who plotted using explosives and guns and a machete to plot and kill Muslims, Americans, in New York State. I've written about it. The media refuses to cover it. He's finally going on trial now in federal court, so he's right about that. In my article today, I go through other terrorist plots by people, right-wing supremacists, who plot to kill Muslims. And it gets no coverage.
It gets no coverage, and you're right. So in this weird way, we agree with Donald Trump. But
he doesn't want us. Right? It's not the agreement he wants. But Donald Trump obviously wants everyone to think the only thing you should worry about are Muslims out there.
Well,
so that you'll support his Muslim ban.
In fact, didn't he say recently that all of our counterterrorism efforts are going to be aimed at Muslim people, and he's going to, so doesn't that mean that he's ignoring Mr. Doggett's trial? And I would love for you to tell the story of what he did, who he is, and then we could talk about what happened in October, and then we could talk about this crazy dude who was working at General Electric and how he was studying dirty bombs, because I just saw you on CNN. I have to say, and they gave, I've been in the little box that you were in today, and you have to say everything in 4 minutes with two other people. Not here. So
I like that, Randy.
Yes, I love that. So go ahead.
We'll go through step by step.
Yeah.
Here is Robert Doggett, a name that most people should know because he was Muslim and had plotted to go kill Christians in a Christian community, including burn down their church and kill their children. I think we would get some media coverage. I think most people would have an understanding of a guy, if they didn't know his name. Robert Doggett was intercepted communications by the FBI, and the FBI found out what he was doing because someone tipped him off. He met with FBI agents, and he is a self-professed Christian minister. His perverted view of Christianity believes that he should kill Muslims. This is as ridiculous as the ISIS guys who think Islam tells them to kill Christians or Jews. It's just as wrong, not based on the theology. It doesn't matter. So this guy, Christian minister, says, I'm going to go kill Muslims. They intercept his communications. He talks about getting explosives, an M4 assault rifle, a machete to cut the Muslims to shred. He said that he's doing this to show his commitment to his God, which is the Christian God.
Right.
He views himself as a warrior.
Right.
And he boasted in the pleadings they have, the intercepted communications, saying things like, we're going to be cruel, we're going to burn down their buildings, meaning their mosque and their school, we will take them down. He was communicating with others he thought were of the like mind. They turned out to be FBI agents. He said they were guys in Texas. We don't know what happened to them. They weren't FBI agents who said they were on board with this plot. He was going to do surveillance, it's called Islamabad in New York State. And a little backstory, Islamabad, it was founded by African-American Muslims like 20 or 30 years ago. Fox News has continually demonized them, saying it's a terrorist training camp. These are all American-born African-American Muslims. They've been here for generations. Some descendant of slaves. The first Muslims to come to America were slaves. 15% of the original slaves were Muslim from Africa. So these guys have nothing to do with terrorism, but Fox News has ginned up the fear of them. So when Robert Doggett's looking to do, what can he do as a Christian martyr and a Christian jihadi? He goes, I'm going to go kill the Muslims, where Fox News said these guys have a training camp. The police have constantly said there's nothing going on there. We've gone there. There's nothing going on. It doesn't matter. And this has been going on for years. So thankfully they arrest him. He's finally going on trial. The trial just began, and I wrote about it last year. I tried to get CNN and MSNBC and other cable news outlets to cover it. Everyone yawned at it. It's not a national story. When I would say to them, but if he was Muslim, it would be national. They go, well, sort of, maybe. They hem and haw. Of course it would be. And so this is the reality. You have a man who plotted to kill Muslims in upstate New York on trial right now, and Donald Trump of course, does not talk about this. The white supremacist, or the Christian radical terrorist, goes against the narrative Donald Trump needs. He needs, so he support his Muslim ban, which thankfully a majority of Americans are rejecting. So that's Robert Doggett, ladies and gentlemen.
That's Robert Doggett, and he's on trial as we speak. And no, the media is not covering it. And it's just, instead, they're talking to Kellyanne Conway right now about the Bowling Green massacre.
Make them up. Just make them.
Just make them up. And of course, she's sitting there saying that she misspoke. She should have said mastermind, but I got tape over here that shows her saying it to TMZ.
Yep.
And there's a Cosmopolitan News article where she was interviewed and she said the Bowling Green massacre harmed our soldiers, an attempt to harm our soldiers. I don't know what world they're living in, but let's talk about some other ones, okay?
Sure.
Give me, the backstory on Glenn Scott Crawford.
Glenn and Scott Crawford. In fact, I was just on CNN, and Matt Lewis, who also writes for the Daily Beast, who's a nice guy, conservative but mainstream. Like, there's a different world now. There's Trumpers, and then there's mainstream conservatives, which I disagree with, but I don't view inherently as horrible people. Trumpers, I do. So he was like, well, Dean, you're making a good point, but what we're worried about is the dirty bomb, the radioactive bomb. And I'm like, Matt, great point, Matt. I agree with you, because Glenn and Scott Crawford, which no one knows his name. You shouldn't know his name unless you've read my articles, because no one in the media would cover it. He was sentenced in December, 6 weeks ago, to 30 years to life. Why? This guy was in the Klan, a U.S. Navy veteran who worked at General Electric.
Wait, go slow.
Okay, he was a
U.S. Navy veteran and a member of the Ku Klux Klan, and an electrical engineer who had carried out a lot of research on radiation dispersal devices.
And he got sentenced to 30 years to life, as well as co-conspirator got 10 years. When you're getting 30 years to life, this is not like, oh, you threaten people. This is, he was going to slaughter Muslims, and that was his plan, to kill Muslims and to kill President Obama as well, but because he thought he was a Muslim.
Right.
To kill Muslims because of their faith, to wake Americans up, because the view of Islam, and they're going to destroy Judeo-Christian values, all the same talking points you see from Breitbart, which is now in the White House, thanks to Steve Bannon and Michael Flynn. So this man was really building something that would have been a dirty bomb, no different than, I think it was Jose Padilla, who they arrested years ago, who wanted to build a dirty bomb in America, except this guy was going to only plant it to kill Muslims. Most people know the name Jose Padilla, or know about the guy wanting to build a dirty bomb who was Muslim, because he had converted to Islam. You don't know this guy's name. You should know his name, but our media has let us down, because to them, and again, this is a conversation I had, it's not a national story when a Christian supremacist like this guy, white supremacist, wants to kill Muslims.
How is that not a national story? I got to tell you, this
30
man...
years to life he got. This is not a joke. This is not like 2 years.
No.
He's gone forever.
Yeah, he's gone, and he's been convicted, and he did get 30 years. And his co-conspirator, a guy named Eric Freight, he pleaded guilty in connection with the case. He was sentenced to 8 years and 1 month in prison. Now, what's really upsetting about this is this guy was a Navy veteran. This guy was a Ku Klux Klan member at the same time, and this guy worked for General Electric, where he was doing research on radiation dispersal devices, and he was convicted on 3 counts, and one was trying to use a weapon of mass destruction, a dirty bomb. And,
exactly it.
And when I saw that on CNN just now with your colleague over at the Daily Beast, no offense, and he said, well, you make a good point, but we're really worried about the dirty bomb. I said, oh my God, he needs much more time than they're going to give him to explain this case. This case never made the media. It didn't. It didn't in the UK. If you wanted to know about this, you had to read The Guardian. Okay, you had to go to The Guardian UK, or you had to read your writing in the Daily Beast. No other media outlet that I could find, and sometimes you Google these stories, you find one result and it's yours, or you find one result and it's in The Guardian, and they're reporting about it overseas, because overseas they really take these terrorist threats very seriously, because they're closer in proximity and geography to people that come in and do these things. But this was a homegrown U.S. Navy vet, KKK member, who worked at General Electric, had access to this kind of research, and used it in
He could have done this, yep.
Yes.
It could have happened. It could have easily happened. And people keep saying, oh, these white supremacists aren't really a threat, or these people targeting Muslims like my community, they're not a threat. what's going to happen is one is going to get through. It's inevitable. You can't stop them all. And at some point, you're going to have an explosion, radiation released, or someone walks into a mosque. We can talk about what happened in Quebec last week. Same exact scenario. In America, people are like, oh, we didn't see the signs. I'm begging people to see the signs. I'm pleading. I literally pleaded with Brooke Baldwin, who I know and like, to please cover this, because first, it destroys a narrative that Trump wants to make everyone believe that the only terrorists are Muslim. Second, it makes us all safer as Americans. So the next Dylan Roof, who walks into a church, a black church, and executes 9 African Americans, when people see signs of white supremacy online, they don't laugh it off, but they call the police. That's what you should be doing.
Right.
And instead, that we live in a world where, unless it's a Muslim guy with an ISIS flag, you're going to call the cops. But a guy with a Confederate flag and guns and saying things about black people, you're not worried. Then Dylan Roof happens again and again.
It's so interesting because Dylan Roof, when he was convicted, hardly a peep out of the media, just, that he was convicted. And like breaking news, Dylan Roof's been convicted for, shooting up a black church. And a professed, self-identified white supremacist, a guy that, makes no bones about it, wanted to represent himself, had no remorse whatsoever, would do it again. And then he gets the death penalty. And that's like, Wolf Blitzer comes on, no offense, I know him too, but Wolf comes on at 5 o'clock and he says, breaking news, Dylan Roof just got the death penalty. And now, and then
and now Donald Trump's tweets. Let's read some more Trump tweets.
Yeah. And all right. And now there's another group.
Another guys. In September, 3 men, and again, I will say this at the outset, I'm so glad the U.S. Attorney in Kansas called them terrorists. 3 men known as the Crusaders.
Mm-hmm.
Crusaders as in the Christian Crusaders, who plotted to kill Muslim refugees, Somali Muslim refugees, in Kansas. And they engaged in surveillance per the FBI. They said they were going to dip the bullets in pig's blood before they killed the Muslims. If that sounds familiar, because Donald Trump was making a speech during the campaign, how General Pershing had done the same thing when fighting Muslims in the Philippines.
Which was a lie, yes.
Right, but it doesn't matter. He just says the crap. He's a serial liar. And so they were doing this. They had planned to use car bombs to drive into the apartment complex where these Muslims lived, and the FBI thankfully caught them. And they're going to go on trial. And again, these are self-professed Christian terrorists who are doing it. And one of them was a self-professed Trump supporter. The other 2 were not sure of their politics. So you have this going on where people go, what do you mean? I never heard of these Christian terrorists or white supremacist terrorists. It's not your fault you haven't heard. It's the media doesn't think it's an important enough story, except to give a little story or 2-minute segment on a CNN or MS and nothing on Fox News. They'll never cover this. This doesn't fit the narrative. And anything with scary Muslims is ratings gold. That's the reality that we live in, because we're so conditioned that the only thing out there scary are Muslims. And just so it's clear, Randy, ISIS is a threat to Americans. ISIS would kill me. I'm Muslim. They despise me because I speak out against them all the time. But that the threat of white supremacists and Christian perverted view of their own faith terrorists is out there. It's very real. In 2015, according to the Southern Poverty Law Center, 54 people were killed by white supremacist terrorists. About 56 were killed by Islamic terrorists on U.S. soil that same year. So you're like, well, that number is pretty similar, isn't it? It is. But we never hear the threat of radical white supremacists or radical, I don't want to say Christian. They're not acting in accordance with their faith. But we
they don't know what the faith is. They
just want to kill other people.
Yeah, they don't. And they think it sounds strong. It might strong and wrong, but they think it sounds strong to say they're doing it in the name of their Christian God. It just sounds, ridiculous. It sounds like the Klan. It sounds like white supremacists. It sounds like the alt-right. It sounds like these crazy people that post Heil Hitler on my chats and on my YouTube page and on my Facebook page and on my Twitter feeds. I get it all the time. I'm thick-skinned, so I just tell them to grow up. But really. But here are the facts. We have an 80% rise in attacks on Muslims in this country, and nobody wants to report violence. And you would think that the media would understand that, if it bleeds, it leads, should apply to all that are bleeding, not to just, this crazy, misconception that, Somalians are attacking us, because it's never happened. Syrians have never attacked us. It's never happened. You don't have, Libyan terrorists in this country. You don't have any of the 7 countries have never produced a refugee that attacked us. So this whole thing is just to stir up some hatred in this country.
It's the worst I've ever seen in my... I can tell you the Muslim American community, and I'm very active in my community, has never been more concerned. At the same time, we're resilient and getting out in the street and protesting, and thankfully more Muslims than ever are now lawyers and in the media and working in politics. So I feel like we're much more of an empowered community than we were right after 9/11, which we were just steamrolled in. But still, we're teeny. We're 1%, maybe 2% of the country. So we can't be everywhere. And, another point I made on CNN today, and even Brian Stelter, the CNN media guy, who's a good guy, I like Brian, actually agreed. It was right. And I tried not to make ridiculous, unfounded accusations in my articles. I try to base them in reality. In Quebec, last Sunday, there was a terrorist attack. The Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, called it a terrorist attack. A man who hated immigrants, who hated Muslims, who online praised Donald Trump, walked into a mosque in Quebec and opened fire. When he was done, 6 Muslims were killed, many others wounded and injured badly, some fighting for their lives as we stand here and chat today. Donald Trump didn't mention that, didn't tweet about that. Our media did not send full team coverage up to Quebec to cover it. They did cover it, but there's not like, we're in the streets now. And my point was, if a Muslim man had walked into a Christian church in Montreal and killed 6 Christians, would there not have been full team coverage by American cable news media's outlets? Of course there would. Donald Trump would have talked about it. It would have been covered to furthering that narrative that the only thing you should be concerned of in this country or in Canada are Muslim terrorists. And we're making ourselves less safe as a nation for that. And, of course, Donald Trump did tweet the guy in Paris took a machete out, Allah Akbar, and they shot him and killed him. End of story. He's tweeting, radical Islam, France is afraid. Not one tweet about Quebec, where the guy killed 6 people simply because they were Muslim. This was terrorism, the very definition of terrorism. And Donald Trump doesn't mention it. And, we see it. And, you call attention to it. I call attention on my SiriusXM show. The progressive media, his supporters, though, they don't hear it or they don't care about it, and I'm not sure where we're going as a country.
I'm not
in the bigger
either,
picture.
but I will tell you this: all this stoking of hatred and all this dividing us into, these groups of people, white supremacists over here, and then over here, your garden variety, just leave me alone. I voted for him. Maybe I'm sorry. Maybe I'm not. But all of this division, Muslims over here, and then we have Jews over here, and then we have the Black Lives Matter, don't matter over here.
Yeah.
All this division is for an end. It really, truly is, because a divided country can't stand, and he knows that. But, what really kills me is, here's a guy who, loves New York. He's a New Yorker. He lives in New York. He lives in Trump Tower. We're paying $1 million a year to protect his family in New York. And on the subways lately, there's all of these swastikas appearing, also the white supremacists, and the riders on the New York subway, because New Yorkers are amazing. I am one, and I don't know where you're from, but
I'm from Jersey, but I live in New York City.
Okay, I love a Jersey guy. But anyway, so were you celebrating on 9/11? Because they said they saw you.
No, I was stuck in traffic. I was on the way there, but there's a lot of traffic, so the parkway gets filled up a lot. So
I hear you. Okay, so on the subway now, some white supremacists have taken to using black Sharpies and writing "All Jews belong in ovens," which is the first attack that I ever got back during the campaign. That was the first thing I'd ever seen that was from a white supremacist. They said, "You belong in an oven," and I was like, "Wow, I haven't heard that in like forever." So now they're writing it all over the subways in March.
Unreal.
Yeah, and the riders on the subway are banding together. They're now riding on the subway with hand sanitizer and tissues because hand sanitizer removes the Sharpie, and they're taking everything down. And no, there's nothing on. And CNN, I know they're in Washington and Atlanta, but Anderson Cooper was my neighbor. I used to see him when I was walking my dog. He walked his dog. He takes the subway, for God's sake. He knows this is going on. Where is that?
I don't know where the coverage is. And you know what? During the campaign, I wrote some articles for the Daily Beast, and I've written a few for the Atlantic. And I wrote one for the Atlantic specifically about the rise in anti-Semitism during this campaign, attacking a Jewish journalist, one in New Jersey, Dana Milbank from Washington, D.C., from The Post, Julia Ioffe from GQ. And when Wolf Blitzer asked Donald Trump a specific question, he said, do you have a message for your supporters who are spewing anti-Semitism against these journalists who have written articles critical of you? And Donald Trump said, I have no message. Well, that's a message, folks. That's keep up the good work, boys. You're on my team. For Donald Trump not to denounce anti-Semitism at that time and the attacks by his followers on journalists who had criticized Trump, who were Jewish, is off the charts. And I have many Jewish friends who have been on my radio show or I've written about who, for the first time in their lives, realize now they really are a minority faith, who realize now they're not white in the time of Donald Trump, who actually realize now they are fearful for their families on a certain extent. There was a great article from the Chicago Sun-Times reporter, I had him on my show, a columnist, who talked about, he interviewed Jews up there who said every instinct in their body tells them to get out of America now because they've seen this story in their Jewish history, going back to 1930s and 40s, that something is building underneath the surface. And I just became a member of the Muslim Jewish Advisory Council, which is put together by the AJC and ISNA, the biggest Muslim group and one of the biggest Jewish groups in America, where we're uniting against this kind of hate. We are minority faiths. We have to stand together. It's a challenging time. Those white supremacists who hate Muslim, they hate Jews and vice versa. They hate us both. They hate us both equally, and they will kill us both if they had a chance. If they really could, I think they would.
Yeah, and that's why when this executive order came down, and obviously he made it religious when he put a carve out for Christians. That's where the religion was infused into just the 7-country thing. Also, Rudy Giuliani couldn't keep his mouth shut and went on the TV and said, "Oh well, he asked me for a Muslim ban, so I gave him one." But what's so disgusting about the media is that Chelsea Clinton actually wrote on Twitter she saw the swastikas, and so she wrote on Twitter, we will not let hate win, another reason to carry hand sanitizer, which is,
right.
And still the media stays quiet. You've got a first daughter of the United States responding as a New Yorker, as somebody who lives there, to this hatred that's spreading, and still the media says nothing. But when this Muslim ban came out, I started saying to my audience, we're all Muslim now. I mean, there's just no question. And
you know what? Bacon's overrated anyway. Forget the bacon. You know what? Be Muslim now, everyone. You have your O'Douls, you have your turkey bacon, and you'll enjoy it much more. Who needs out? I'm kidding. So I think you're absolutely right. And I think that this is a time that is truly beyond normal. It's a time where I think there's concern and there's fear in people's voices. And I'm glad that you see a lot of progressives going from fear, they're not being paralyzed, they're getting more active. And they're speaking out and getting in the streets.
Well, you know what?
We need to do even more of that. That's the resistance.
When I first learned to ride a horse, this was the best advice I ever got, okay? When I first learned to ride, I was terrified. I was scared. This is a big animal, and I'm sitting on top of it, and I don't know what I'm doing. And this man said to me, turn your fear into anger. And that's what happened here. That's what's going on here. People who are afraid and terrified and want to flee. I started a hashtag Stay and Fight. They're now understanding that their fear of this crazy man in the White House who's padding around in his bathrobe and watching the shows and tweeting and rolling things out in the most chaotic, disgusting, disgraceful way, and causing so much harm and pain to people, and instilling and inciting all this violence against minorities, like Black Lives Matter. That was his first thing, and then the Muslim ban, that was the second thing, and now this anti-Semitic thing with Steve Bannon. I don't want my kids going to school with Jews. Doing all that, it made people scared, and now they're starting to get angry, and that's a very good use of their fear, because the only thing that ever stops you from doing something important is fear. And I really do think that life is about conquering your fear, and once you do, and you can turn it into useful anger, into meaningful organization, then you can get the results that you want. But the idea that the media doesn't report terrorist attacks is a true one, except Donald Trump didn't mean it the way we mean it.
Right. He meant we didn't cover San Bernardino. No one's ever heard of Orlando.
Oh, speaking
or Paris
of
or Brussels. No one ever heard of those things.
Dean,
what world do you live in, Donald Trump?
We're talking to Dean Obeidallah, who just wrote this piece for the Daily Beast that everybody must read. It's in my homework section at RandiRhodes.com. And of course, you can listen to him on Sirius XM, channel 121 Insight. But beyond that, I just wanted to touch base with you and tell you that what you're doing matters. What you're doing is important. You are being read. You are being distributed. You are being heard. You are being felt. This will not stand. This is not America. This is not the country of your birth, my birth. This is something completely foreign and divisive and ugly and dangerous. And we get it. We all get it, Dean.
Well, thank you. And, we have to stand together, united against hate. That's really what it comes down to. The idea of people talk about the resistance. To me, it's the idea of never surrendering, never giving in, and never being silent. And we stand united against hate, and we can prevail. I mean, and I'm going to be blunt. 2018, it looks like a hard thing in the midterms, but guess what? Donald Trump, right now, the GOP has about 46, 47 seat margin in the House. President Obama in 2010 lost 63 seats in the House, and he was more popular than Trump is. It can happen. We can have an impact on the elected office, on the House.
We
and
can.
The Senate's tough, but you know what?
Hey.
If he's down to 28% approval rating, everything is in play. It could be a coup of the Senate and the House if we treat 2018 like a presidential election year and everyone come out, register, go to other states, go to swing states, campaign there like you would in a presidential year. We could take the Senate and the House. It is possible.
Yeah, and we've identified a lot of the swing states and put them on, on our homework section, so that people who live in swing states, who understand that there's an open seat or that there's a seat in jeopardy, can change the balance of the House where impeachment begins.
Right.
So
that's where we need a House. That's really because they start investigations and self-dealing, profiting off his own business. The guy, he's expanding his hotel chain. Saddam Hussein didn't have a hotel chain. This is unreal. This guy. Like, there was no Hussein Hiltons, but Trump is going to expand his hotels. He has no sense of any kind of humility. It's ultimate hubris. It's beyond anything the Bush or Cheney's did. It's a whole new world of insanity that we're going through. But together we're going to fight this.
I hear you.
Yay! I like that.
Thank you, Dean Obeidallah.
Thank you, Randy. Nice chatting with you, Randy. I appreciate it.
Anytime at all. You too. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Dean Obeidallah writes for the Daily Beast, writes for the Atlantic, has a show on Sirius XM 121, the Insight Channel. That's where John Fugelsang is too. So for those of you looking, that's where it is. And Dean works, I think, noon to 1. And we thank him for taking time out of his very busy day, because I saw him on CNN and I knew he had something very important to say about underreporting of terrorist attacks. And they put him in the little box, and I've been in the little box, and in the little box, you get, these segments are usually 4 to 6 minute segments, but you're on there with 4 other people who all have something to say. And you can't say what he said in the last 20-something minutes about these 3 terror attacks. The man that got 30 years, the Crusaders, these white supremacists, the army dude who, Navy dude who was working for General Electric as a member of the Ku Klux Klan, researching, radioactive devices, to disseminate a dirty bomb against Muslims, and the language that they used. Oh my God, they said, "We will be cruel. We will burn down their buildings," referring to mosques and schools. "And if anybody attempts to harm us in any way, we will take them down." The guy from GE, I mean, this story, it raises the hair on the back of your. And the guys in Kansas, we did hear a little something about the guys in Kansas, in the Somali community in Kansas. But did you hear that he said the only good Muslim is a dead Muslim? He said, this man's name is Patrick Stein. You don't know his name, do you? You don't know Gavin Wright's name or Curtis Alan Wright's name. These were guys in their 40s that, were acting as sovereign citizens, anti-government, anti-Muslim, anti-extremist beliefs, according to the FBI, who set them up, right? And they had told the FBI in recordings that the only good Muslim is a dead Muslim. Mr. Stein said he would enjoy shooting Muslims in the head. He said, when we go on operations, there's no leaving anyone behind, even if it's a 1-year-old. I'm serious, he said. I guarantee if I go on a mission, those little effers are going to go bye-bye, he said, according to the FBI. And he conducted surveillance on 3 different occasions. He discussed targeting churches that had supported refugees, Syrian refugees. And at a 2016 meeting in his mobile home, he had the FBI agent in, and they introduced an undercover agent to work with the confidential source that they had been using to watch this group. And the agent, the FBI guy, actually provided automatic weapons, even allowed him, Mr. Stein, to fire them to gain his trust. And then, they were all included, the FBI guy, the informant, the infiltrator from the FBI. They were all on a conference call. And he said on this conference, and they have him on tape saying this stuff, tape is good for the media. Audio is good. Video's better, but audio's good, and there is audio. And he said, quote, the only effing way this country's ever going to get turned around, it needs to be a bloodbath. It needs to be a nasty, messy mother blanker. Unless a lot more people in this country wake up and smell the effing coffee and decide they want this country back, we might be too late if they do wake up. I think we can get it done, but it ain't going to be nothing nice about it. This is the guy that, tried to blow up buildings in Kansas where an apartment complex where Somali people were very busy living their lives, educating their kids, educating themselves and working. It just takes your breath away. There is no coverage on the media. So in this way, Donald Trump, we agree with you. There, I said it.
The Randi Rhodes Air Force. Air Force. RandiRhodes.com.
Hi, we're back, and everything is possible again. Isn't it beautiful? Well, if you want to keep it this way, buy a stinking podcast. Oh, yes, you have to buy a stinking podcast. And you get that at RandiRhodes.com, where we're open all day, all night long. RandiRhodes.com. Get your stinking podcast.
The Randi Rhodes Air Force. The Randi Rhodes Show is live on RandiRhodes.com and the free Progressive Voices app for Android and iOS. Visit the App Store or ProgressiveVoices.com now.
All right, we went a little bit long here, so let me just tell you that Miss Joy Reid from MSNBC's AM Joy, Saturday and Sundays, will be on our show next. Right after the break. Stay tuned. The Randi Rhodes Show is brought to you by our partners at ITM Trading. Call them at 1-888-OWN-GOLD and ask for a free gold kit. 1-888-OWN-GOLD.
You're listening to WIN, Workers Independent News, a diversified media enterprises production. I'm Doug Cunningham. Michigan Republicans running state government are about to try again to cut retiree medical care and pensions for public workers. Mark Doherty is president of the Michigan Professional Firefighters Union. He says Michigan Republicans aren't looking for ways to fund the pension promises made to public employees. They're just looking to slash the benefits.
I want them to come with a thoughtful solution on how we can maintain them. We want to see pre-funding. We want to see these benefits be maintained. I don't want to see them just cut. And far too often that's the answer we're seeing is just cut the benefits.
Michigan Governor Rick Snyder claims there's a $14 billion unfunded liability for pensions and retiree health care benefits. Michigan has no state pension system for public employees. It's all done locally, but state Republicans still want to cut the retirement benefit of public workers throughout the state. Doherty says firefighters retire typically in their 50s and have a host of injuries and health issues that need to be covered for years before Medicare kicks in.
Our retiree health care benefit is important because we tend to retire sooner. We retire in our early 50s, typically the mid-50s. We have a 10 to 15 year gap before we get on Medicare. So we leave the fire service in retirement, usually with chronic injuries. We have a 62% rate of cancer. We have PTSD issues. And these are all things that are very important to us to be taken care of. That's a very important issue for us to make sure we maintain this benefit.
Mesa flight attendants are taking a strike vote later this month. The AFA-CWA represents Mesa workers. They've been in labor contract talks for years that are now stalled. The union says they are underpaid compared to other flight attendants flying for United and American Airlines. Mesa is based in Phoenix. AFA-CWA represents 700 Mesa flight attendants. If they vote to authorize a strike, the workers can't call the strike until the National Mediation Board declares talks at an impasse. A 30-day cooling-off period is also required after that before a strike could start. Yale may appeal an NLRB January 2017 ruling that approved a union election for Yale grad student workers. The NLRB order was for 9 separate elections in different departments employing grad grad student workers at Yale. Yale now says it's considering appealing the ruling. Yale's Office of General Counsel is working to determine whether the university should request a review of the decision with the NLRB. The union election dates haven't yet been set.
Workers Independent News is brought to you by the American Federation of Teachers and its 1.6 million members working to reclaim the promise of public education, health care, and public services for our students, their families, and our communities. More information online at aft.org. Brought to you by Union Active, your certified iOS and Android mobile app developer, offering high-quality, union-made mobile apps backed by a support team which upgrades your product to every new mobile operating system. Features, pricing, and examples are online at unionactive.com.
You've been listening to WIN, Workers Independent News. For more information, visit laborradio.org.
Happy Valentine's Day. What are you going to get her? What are you going to get her? You want to give her something really, really different, something really big protein, big flavor, big packs, little carbs? Herky jerky, baby. I love herky jerky, and I don't know anybody who's watching their carbs that doesn't love herky jerky. It is the most delicious, favorite jerky that I've ever had. And you can't get the best stuff just anywhere. Herky jerky is beef, elk, venison, bacon, slabs, and sticks, the most amazing thing you've ever had. And now, $5 off any purchase of $30 or more with promo code Valentine, just for Valentine's Day. The bacon, it's a slab. You can put it on BLTs, use it in salads, munch right out of the bag. I've shopped for jerky everywhere, and I have to tell you, if you give her herky jerky by going to herkyjerky.com and taking $5 off your $30 or more purchase, she will say, oh my God, that's what Randi loves. herkyjerky.com, promo code Valentine.
Here's what's happening on the Leslie Marshall Show on the Progressive Voices Network.
Donald Trump's travel ban fundamentally changes our history, but is this a history that we want to be known for? Tweeting is not enough. Marching is not enough. Even calling me is not enough. You need to call your congressional members because it would truly take an act of Congress to stop this. How will Congress respond? And in addition to that, you have got to vote in 2 years, folks. Don't let the anger and the pain that you feel today subside in the next 2 years, because that's what happens. We Democrats do that. We women do that. Millennials, you do that. African Americans, you do that. Hispanics, you do that. I'm sorry, I'm going to call you out. The numbers don't lie. We have got to be a force to be reckoned with. The only way we are going to be able to take our country back from this madman is to vote. There are a number of lawsuits being put forth and a lot of people not recognizing their United States of America today. Joining us, a more than a pleasure to have back on the show, Ben Johnson, Executive Director of the American Immigration Lawyers Association, the AILA. You cited the purpose of the travel ban as a source of concern, and you said, quote, this is a thinly veiled attack on Islam. How does somebody take a pen, sign this, and wreak such havoc on hundreds of people's lives and, you know, just all the chaos that has ensued since then?
I mean, obviously, I think one of the problems that we have now is that Congress is still treading on, I think on eggshells in terms of figuring out how to respond to the president. And although there has been, I think, happily and proudly, some, plenty of Republicans who have stood up and said this is, is a bad idea. So far, Congress, as a whole, as a body, hasn't stepped up to really stop the implementation of this. So the president has a lot of authority when it comes to executive orders, but it's not an unlimited authority. It's authority that can and should be checked by Congress. It's an authority that, where appropriate, can and should be checked by the courts. And then I would add to the voices of all the people that are out on the streets the last couple of days, it's an authority that can at least politically be constrained by those of us the government is supposed to represent, the people. There are serious constitutional questions here, both on the face of the document and in the context in which they're given. One example is that the president has expressed belief that the Christians that are being persecuted should be treated preferentially, that they should their cases should be looked at first and they should be admitted first. Well, that's first-year law school stuff. You can't, that's essentially
an indication that the United States offers specialized protection to Christians over other religions. That's a violation of the First Amendment. Imagine what it's like for the folks that are the victims of these policies, and the idea that they are being confronted with potential expulsion or a return to these countries without even understanding what's going on or an opportunity to be represented by a judge. That's pretty reprehensible. So this judge has said, look, you've got to give these folks an opportunity to talk to a lawyer and understand what their rights are. So for now, certainly the people that arrived at the airport, or while they were in transit, before this order was issued, I think those cases, those people have been ordered released. That seems to have happened. I think there is an ongoing violation of the other orders in that the agency continues to refuse to allow these folks to talk to a lawyer, for lawyers to be involved, and that's something that we're monitoring to make sure that those violations are brought to the attention of the courts. And I think the judges have acknowledged that there is a likelihood of success. So these can't be dismissed as baseless. If they were baseless, I don't think a federal court judge would have issued the injunction.
Catch my show, The Leslie Marshall Show, Monday to Friday on the Progressive Voices Network.
Mary had a little lamb.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe it.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
Oh, everybody, this is exciting. We are about to speak to the host of AM Joy Saturday and Sundays on MSNBC from 10 until noon Eastern Time. That is appointment television for moi. I got to watch it. I love her. And also, she is nominated for an NAACP Image Award this year. And also, edited a book along with E.J. Dionne, which is a collection of Barack Obama's speeches called We Are the Change We Seek. Welcome to the show, Joy Ann Reid. Hi, Joy.
Randi, it's so great to talk to you.
Oh, my God, you sound just like you. It's great to talk to you, too. Congratulations on the book. I think that was an awesome thing to undertake, and working with E.J. Dionne is great.
Well, thank you. And can I say I'm a longtime fan. I was in Florida for 14 years, and you were a staple on one of our radio stations down there that carried you, and I listened to you every single day. So it's really an honor to talk to you.
Oh, thanks, Joy. I had no earthly idea. Well, I just thought this would be a good time to check in with you because the honeymoon is apparently over, but we're the ones that are getting screwed. So, I mean, what is going on? How do you view it from where you sit? You have access to some of the best minds, in the universe, in the media universe. I watch your show, religiously, and I see you speaking to them, and everybody seems to agree that this man is just incapable of telling the truth, but it's for a reason. He doesn't just lie to, the people he disagrees with. He lies to his supporters. What is going on here? What do you think the end game is?
Yeah, and you talked about a honeymoon. There really never was a honeymoon. He came in with a 40-something% approval rating, the lowest in recorded history. And I think what you're seeing, so there's the two versions of it, right? So the funny, amusing part is this sort of bumbling White House that doesn't know where the light switches are, so they're having meetings in the dark, and Trump is walking around with books full of drapery coverings and giving people tours and padding around in his tube socks at 6:30 p.m. and just bumbling through the first 2 weeks of his administration, doing executive orders he didn't read and getting kind of pushed around in a sense by Steve Bannon, who's obviously more ideological than him, and coming up with all these ideas with Stephen Miller and then putting him in front of him to sign. That's sort of the Keystone Cops version of what's going on. The other version of what's going on is that this is the first step toward an autocracy, because you have a guy who's got these malevolent tendencies. He's incredibly vindictive, thin-skinned, doesn't want to believe any negative information, whether it's a scientific poll or climate change, only speaks to his supporters and then says to them, only listen to me. Don't listen to the news. It's all fake news. Only listen to me. I'm the only one who can save you. That's actually dangerous, and it's not a democratic idea.
No, it's extremely autocratic and demagogic, and it's very frightening. And as I started to listen to him, I realized that I'm not the intended audience. Okay, the people who are his opponents, let's say his political opponents, are not the target for this mass creation of, Bowling Green massacres that never happened. And, I just talked to one of your former guests, I just talked to Dean Obeidallah about why the media doesn't cover, Donald Trump said that the media yesterday, talking to CENTCOM, which really freaked me out as an Air Force veteran, that he would go there. You're not supposed to be political at all when you're in the military. And so to have the president is a great honor, but the president comes and starts being political with you and says that the media is lying to you and that, there's danger out there and that they're not telling you about. And it turns out he's right in this weird way. There are terrorist attacks happening out there, but they're happening on the New York subways. They're happening, with the swastikas that are making these crazy appearances everywhere. And they're happening against Muslims. That yesterday when he said they're not reporting terror attacks, a man was actually just beginning his trial for planning a terror attack against a Muslim community. So it's so strange. I realize he's talking to his supporters when he says this. Why is he so intent on dividing America into all these little groups? I mean, it started with, Black Lives Matter, no Blue Lives Matter. Then it started with, I'm going to do a Muslim ban. And he does do a Muslim ban. Then he starts, he hires Steve Bannon, who said, I don't want my kids going to school with Jews, right? And he makes them an invitee, let's say, to the National Security Council. Why is he talking to his supporters this way?
Well, I mean, again, if you look at it from the, Sarah Kendzior, who's a longtime journalist who studies autocratic governments, what he's doing is he's building his own side into an impenetrable base that cannot be even communicated to from the outside. And that already kind of exists because you have polarized media. They only listen to Fox. They only listen to Rush. They don't get their news from me, obviously. They're not listening to CNN or MSNBC. They just listen to, now not even just Fox, they just listen to him, right? And what you've seen is that Donald Trump has climbed on board with Steve Bannon's worldview. And if you take a look into his worldview and the worldview of people like Stephen Miller, who's the policy director at the White House, it revolves around the idea that there's this existential war going on between the Christian white West and Islam and Muslims worldwide. And this is a global war that only one side realizes it's in, and that the white Christian West isn't recognizing it's in a war, so they're not fighting hard enough, and that the only white Christian country that's got its act together and that is fighting without any sense of political correctness.
You know what that just reminded me of? Yeah, exactly. You know what that just reminded me of? You remember, I don't know how old you are, but you remember an old poster from the 70s and it said, what if we declared war and nobody came?
That's what they're doing, right? They believe, and Bannon really believes, that we're in this, what they call the fourth turning. It's this really weird, creepy ideology that history goes in 80-year cycles that have a disaster that causes an opportunity for a political realignment. And they think that the 2008 financial crisis was the disaster, and this political realignment will reestablish the dominance of white Christian men, basically. Wow. And that is this weird philosophy that Bannon really believes. And now he is sort of in control of Donald Trump, who is a conspiracy theorist, who's paranoid, and who's really sort of manipulatable in this way, it seems. And so he's caught on to this conspiracy theory, and we're off to the races.
Yeah, and I mean, it's gone too far now. I mean, it's one thing to talk to, your supporters and tell them a bunch of lies, but during a campaign. But once you're president, there are three co-equal branches of government, and he is trashing the entire judiciary with these, so-called judge, and if we get attacked, blame him. The firing of Sally Yates, he started it with Judge Coriel. You can't trust him because I'm building a wall and he's Mexican. I mean, it's an attack against the democracy itself. It's an attack against the entire system. And you're right. Now I understand why he's filling his supporters' heads with this nonsense. It's so that he can be the only one, the only man, the only person you can trust. You can't trust the judiciary. You can't trust Congress. You can't trust any legislators. You can only trust him. He is the only one. And it's frightening.
Well, he's also somebody who's only ever had one boss, and that's his father.
Yeah.
Other than that, he's been the boss, and he seems to see the presidency as just another CEO job where he's in charge, and all these other branches of government report to him. And so you have, on the one sense, just a guy who doesn't really understand, I think, the Constitution, and doesn't understand that these co-equal branches of government have as much power as the presidency. He just doesn't seem to understand that. And there's no one around him who's saying to him, Mr. President, the judiciary is a co-equal branch of government, and so is Congress. He's just ordering them around. And, Randy, to be honest with you, one of those co-equal branches, the Congress, is letting itself be ordered around. Republicans aren't showing any desire to check this president when all they did was try to rein in and check Barack Obama. So we have a problem, and I think the courts at this point are the only institution that's really standing up for itself in our three-part government.
That's very smart. That's a great observation. Thank you so much, Joy, for making this very clear to me, because for a couple of days now I've been wrestling with why is he, speaking to his supporters this way. Obviously, the opponents like me, it's not meant for us. But then attacking the judiciary. And you're right about the Republicans. I mean, they allowed, I guess Mitch McConnell allowed, Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski to vote no against DeVos today, but no more. And what's really disturbing is that they left Jeff Sessions sitting there, knowing that they needed his vote. And now he'll be the next to be confirmed as Attorney General, who's going to oversee Betsy DeVos's, conflicts of interest. I mean, the whole thing it's a mess. I keep telling my listeners, it's like, as far as the Republicans in Congress go, it's like they're riding a bull. They know that this is bad. He's going to break up the China shop, but they're going to ride him as long as they can to get what they want.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you have ideologues like, Speaker of the House Paul Ryan, who've long wanted to do things like privatize Medicare and block grant Medicaid and gut Social Security and probably privatize it. I think they'd rather those things go out over his signature than, let's say, Mike Pence's.
Yeah.
And, I think that, Donald Trump really admires Vladimir Putin. It's actually kind of creepy how much he admires him. He really deeply admires him. And the way Putin operates is to, well, in Putin's case, a lot of his opponents end up dead. But he also marginalized the press in Russia. He marginalizes or co-opts them. He has things like RT that are basically wholly owned subsidiaries of the Russian government. But this idea, what Trump has done, that some of it has been pretty slick. He's co-opted McConnell. McConnell's wife has a job in the administration.
Yeah.
He's promising Ryan he'll give him what he wants. He'll get rid of Obamacare if he wants. He'll probably privatize Medicare. He's given Wall Street everything they could possibly ask for. So he's co-opting some branches of government, and then he's trying to neutralize the others that could check him.
That's exactly it. Thank you. I feel worse, but I feel better. Do you know what I mean? Well, listen, it's just been a tiny slice of heaven. This is Joy Reid, the host of AM Joy, Saturday and Sundays on MSNBC 10 and 12. And of course, we're rooting for you for your NAACP Image Award.
Thank you.
I just wanted to tell you that, Black History Month, I think today on the White House schedule, we have Steve Harvey giving a speech on feminism, followed by a Bo Bice concert. Tickets still available, so enjoy.
Well, Frederick Douglass is doing just an amazing job.
I was going to bring him up, but I knew you'd get there. I knew you'd do it. I knew it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Randy.
You're brilliant. Thank you, Joy.
Cheers.
Love you. Bye. Oh, she's so good.
I love her.
She's a fan of mine. Who knew? All right, let's take the break, and we will get to your calls. I know we didn't take one single phone call today, so we'll do that. And it's kind of screenless. It's kind of screenless today.
That's to say the least. Howard's not here, so I've got my hands full with the show and the calls and everything.
Yes,
so.
Captain Leary is very multitasking.
Bear with me.
Yeah, it's difficult. But the Howard, just so you know, is at an event for an organization called Faith in America. Faith in America is an organization for Christians and Jews and Muslims who happen to be LGBTQ and love to practice their religion, but are completely ostracized and marginalized and, are the victims of a lot of hatred from churches, synagogues, and mosques. And that has been, Howard sits on the board of that, and he's been on the board of that for years and years doing the best work. And we thought we were done. I remember saying, on the air, like in July, that he was going to retire from the board of Faith in America because we didn't need it anymore. Because gay marriage was, ruled on by the Supreme Court, and because the military was accepting all people of every Well, we're back to square one. We're back to square one with these, heinous executive orders, and the LGBT community is completely under attack again. And so they went to reconvene, is what they did. And of course, they meet in New York, so that's where he is today. All right. So let's just take the break, and we'll come back and we'll talk to you. It's 19 after.
For a commercial-free, on-demand, whenever, wherever listening experience, visit RandiRhodes.com for your personal premium podcast today.
Now that Trump's on his way to the White House, how long do you think it's going to take him and his Wall Street cronies to completely wreck our economy? This Trump administration is greedy, full of avarice, and awful, and the damage they're going to do to the economy will become legend. They are going to make the financial crisis of 2008 look like a pool party. And once again, working class Americans, you're going to get soaked. And that's why now more than ever, it's time to diversify your investment portfolio. Gold's low correlation with stocks and bonds can help you in times of uncertainty. Just call my friends at ITM Trading today, get a free gold kit, and learn why gold survives every government, every currency, and every economic crisis. Call ITM Trading at 1-888-OWN-GOLD for guidance from their precious metals experts. They've helped tens of thousands of people navigate this market, and they have the best reputation in this industry. So call 1-888-OWN-GOLD, 1-888-OWN-GOLD.
This is Tara Devlin from RepublicanDirtyTricks.com on the Progressive Voices channel on TuneIn. And here's an excerpt from my show, the It Sucks to Be Right Tara Buster.
Have you seen Steve Bannon? That guy, he looks like he came off a bender, frankly. He does not look happy. He looks just like his mind, completely unhealthy. If I were going to cast a movie about some unhinged Niccolo Machiavelli manipulating to kill us all, they wouldn't even cast Steve Bannon because he would be too over the top. He looks like, you ever see behind the scenes photos of The Walking Dead where the actors are all made up like corpses? They're all just waiting around between takes. That's what he looks like he's a freshly dead corpse made up. That's the thing. He's not healthy, not just outside. This guy needs to be in a hospital. Anybody who's a racist, that's what they spend their time worrying about. Oh, I don't want my kids going to school with Jews. That's your concern in life. Not to say, maybe my kid would do well going to school with people of different backgrounds and experience, because that would make them a more well-rounded human being. Maybe they'll learn something. It's only been 2 weeks now, right? Since Twitler was sworn in?
Yes, it's only been 2 weeks.
We should now refer to these 2 weeks as the first 100 days. Right?
I'm okay with that.
This is Tara Devlin from RepublicanDirtyTricks.com. That was a clip from my show, the It Sucks to Be Right Tara Buster, recorded live Saturday 6 p.m. Eastern at FYINation.com, replayed Sunday 7 p.m. Eastern on Progressive Voices, or anytime on demand on the Progressive Voices app. We stick together, we win.
I am super sexually satisfied. I'm genuinely 100% more satisfied with my sex life than I was before Randi Rhodes came back on the air. Hi, I'm the Howard, and yes, it's true. I'm actually 100% more sexually satisfied than I was just 1 day ago. And I didn't grow a mustache. I didn't get an awesome new tattoo, and I didn't join a CrossFit gym either. I just bought a Randi Rhodes Air Force t-shirt. And when I did, I told Randi, well, there, I've done my part. How do I look at my awesome new Randi Rhodes Air Force 100% super soft cotton tee? And Randi said, that's it? That's all you did to support this unfreaking, unbelievably hard effort? Okay, Howard, go fuck yourself. So I did. And I have to tell you, I still got it. Get your super soft Randi Rhodes t-shirt at RandiRhodes.com. Just click on podcasts and swag and order yours today. You'll feel a lot better after you tell Randi.
The Randi Rhodes Show is live on RandiRhodes.com and the free Progressive Voices app for Android and iOS. Visit the App Store or ProgressiveVoices.com now.
All right, here, watch this.
It's been almost a week and a half now. How do you think President Trump is doing it all?
He's had a spectacular tenure in office so far. He got done more in maybe 6 or 7 days than many presidents get done. Long
and now with the Trump visa ban, there's an
it's not a visa ban.
There's an Iranian director that's supposed to come for the Oscars, and
it's not a visa ban. It is meant to be prospective and preventative. And if people have a reason to be here, then they'll be here. But this is meant to protect our borders and protect us from terrorism. The fact is that it was President Obama and the Congress who identified these 7 countries. So President Trump is just following on. President Obama suspended the Iraq refugee program for 6 months in 2011, and no one certainly covered it. I think nobody noticed. He did that because there were 2 Iraqis who came here, got radicalized, joined ISIS, and then were the masterminds behind the Bowling Green attack on our brave soldiers. And
the Bowling Green attack on our brave soldiers. That thing that she said to Chris Matthews over on MSNBC that's made the rounds, where she said, that Obama did the same thing and he banned Iraqi refugees. There was a slowdown in admitting Iraqi refugees for about 6 months because there were 2 guys living in Kentucky whose fingerprints were found on IEDs in Iraq. And so Obama, back in the day, slowed down to implement new vetting procedures for Iraqi refugees who were fleeing Iraq and being welcomed to our country. There was never, ever a single month during the Obama administration where an Iraqi refugee was not allowed to enter this country. That never happened. There was never a ban. There was never a ban on any of the other countries that are in the Muslim ban that Donald Trump has issued. And there was no such thing as the Bowling Green massacre. It didn't endanger our brave soldiers in Bowling Green, Kentucky. There was no attack. And yet we produced for you today at least 3 incidences of attacks on Muslims in this country. A trial that is currently going on in this country, that's only in day 2 in this country, that was never covered by mainstream media, that was never covered by any of the news networks, not NBC, not CBS, not ABC, not any. Certainly the President of the United States never tweeted about Quebec. The President of the United States never tweeted about these white supremacists that got 30 years, or the guy who was a former Navy veteran, a Ku Klux Klan member, and working at General Electric, who was looking at a radioactive dispersal device for a dirty bomb, who got 30 years in prison, or the Crusaders in Kansas who were going to attack Somali immigrants who lived in a apartment complex in Kansas. None of that was covered by the media. None of it. And the president never tweeted about any of it. But the one thing that they would like to draw your attention to is something that never happened. Now you have to, this is why I needed to speak to somebody with a bigger brain. Yes, there are people with bigger brains. Joy Reid is one of those people, I think, in my opinion. I listen to her, I watch her analyze, I watch her, disseminate, I watch her do journalism, and I wish I had the staff, I wish that I had the wherewithal to, do that kind of work. I never had what I needed to do that kind of work, but I really wish that one day I do. One day I do. So I needed to talk to somebody who has access to bigger brains than me and is a bigger brain than me. And of course, it's so obvious. It's so obvious. He is turning himself into a dictator. He's turning himself into some authoritarian well, we know he's a megalomaniac, but he's turning himself into the only man. And he said it. He said it, but we just, thought he was nuts. But he's the only man that can solve your problems. He's the only one. Unfortunately, this isn't a CEO job. This isn't a corporation. These are the United States of America. We are a democracy. We do have 3 co-equal branches of government, and she's right. It seems to me that the only branch that wants to do its job, that will do its job, or that even looks to do its job is the judicial branch. And that is why he's denigrating these justices. That's why he went after Judge Curiel, who was hearing his Trump University fraud case, which, he settled for $25 million. He settled another one on Friday against, a golf club down here. His own golf club settled against residents in Jupiter, Florida, and he paid millions of dollars in that case. Now he goes after, Judge Robart, who is a conservative judge, obviously appointed by the Bush administration, confirmed unanimously by the U.S. Senate back in the day, who sits, in Washington State as a federal court judge. Obviously, he fires Sally Yates, but it's not just that he fires her. Yes, he has the right to fire anybody he wants. We get that. It's that he has to tweet and say she's bad on border control. She's bad on immigration, which makes no sense because Obama deported more people in his 8 years. He was the deporter in chief. Whether you liked it or not, whether I liked it or not, it's a fact. Obama deported almost 3 million people. Almost 3 million people over his 8 years. Prioritizing criminals. So none of this makes sense unless we understand why he's talking to his opponents in this manner and why he's trashing the last remaining branch of government that is willing, or at least looks willing at this point, to check him and balance him, because he is unbalanced. And that was a really good conversation for me to have had. And I thank Joy Reid for making herself available to me. Now buy her damn book. We are the change that we see, or we are the change that we want. Tony in Atlanta.
Hello, my truth goddess. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm much better now. You just said something a couple of seconds ago, how Trump said he's the only one that's going to solve anybody's problems.
Yeah.
But he wasn't really talking to the rubes that voted for him. He was talking to the rich.
Oh, I see. Well, he certainly...
Yeah, he just happened to be on TV.
Well, he certainly did cut out the middleman. And, you know, for people who want to say that Hillary Clinton gave all these speeches, as did Bill Clinton, to Wall Street, they are correct. They did do that. They made their money by writing bestsellers, New York Times bestsellers, selling them, and giving speeches to Wall Street. They gave speeches to Goldman Sachs. They gave speeches to, other Wall Street interests. But it seems to me that Donald Trump cut out those middlemen, known as the Clintons, and just brought them right into the cabinet, because that's what Steve Mnuchin, that's what Cohen is, that's what, the biggest, Wilbur Ross, these are the foreclosure kings. And he's just invited them in, and given them official positions within his cabinet. Isn't that special?
Oh, totally special.
Yeah.
But see, what people need to do is they need to start following the money. The people that watch Fox News don't get the information that you give out. They don't get the truth. They don't. I mean, if they listen to Rush Limbaugh, they don't get the truth. But the truth is that if you like Nancy DeVos today, she made donations to all of the 50 senators who voted for her. So if people start following the money, and because people are so they get really upset when their kids get screwed over.
Yeah.
There should be nobody voting for any more senators that have an R after their name in 2018. Even though the Democrats have more people up for re-election than the Republicans.
Well, only in the Senate, but in the House, everybody's up for re-election in 2018. So that's a good little, it's a good detail for why people should show up in 2018. But you're right. He's empowering the richest billionaires. He's included every billionaire that we used to look down on. We used to say, the Clintons are talking to this one and the Clintons are talking to that one. Well, now you don't even need the Clintons to go and give a speech, which, by the way, what they were saying to Wall Street is, don't make us regulate you. Do the right thing. That was their message. But Donald Trump said, screw that. Just come on in and make the rules yourself.
Exactly.
Give us money, and we'll give you a cabinet position. She's right. Mitch McConnell was bought with Elaine Chao's nomination, and obviously Betsy DeVos, she was confirmed. And the other thing that was confirmed today is that fact that if you give enough money, anybody can be a cabinet member in a Trump administration. It's just about the money. Just give us the money. And, even if you foreclosed on 36,000 elderly people in California and in Ohio, we'll make you the head of the Treasury.
Yeah, that's exactly true. But, the last time we talked, I was telling people to stop voting Republican. Because Republican governments don't work. You remember when we had Hurricane Sandy up in New York?
Yes.
And the New York subways were flooded and all of these people couldn't get back into their homes and it was really bad. Then you had all of these people up in New York going, why isn't the government helping me? Well, it was a Republican government. Oh, we can't spend the money. I don't know what you're talking about. Ask the people from Katrina. Same thing. Oh, we can't spend the money. And these people are drowning in their own houses. It was ridiculous. Why do people... Please explain to me why people vote Republican. Please.
I don't know. I mean, I think that they just like strong and wrong more than they like thinking. They just like any strong and wrong person who steps up to the microphone and says, I love guns and you can have, as many as you want, even if you're mentally ill. And the problem
that was messed up.
Oh, that's messed up. But the problem isn't you. The problem is them. And whoever tells people that no matter what the voting record is, no matter how hostile they've been to their health care, no matter how hostile they've been to their recovery after a natural disaster, no matter how hostile they are to the environment that causes those natural disasters, no matter how hostile they are to their children or their children's ability to attend a fully funded public school, they will vote for the strong man. There's something in their brain that responds to strong and wrong. I don't know what it is, but when you talk to them and you reach out to them or you have them reach out to you, they always come at you like some fifth grader. They don't come at you with an argument. They come at you they say you need to go on a diet, or you need to be in an oven, or you're ugly, or you're fat, or you're this, or you're that, or Heil Hitler. What kind of argument is that? It's a small-minded authoritarian argument that says that politics is a zero-sum game, meaning I can win if you lose. And that's not what democracy is. Democracy is trying to raise all boats. That's the best result for a functioning democracy, is all boats rise. Like after the Great Depression, all this investment into America, all this infrastructure investment, all the investment into, creating jobs and work programs and this is what lifted all boats. That's what works. That's what democracy is that's when we became exceptional. And saying to our enemies in World War II, okay, this is over. We have a belief that if we help build you back to where you were before you made this mistake, you'll never make that mistake again. And it worked for 70 years. It's worked. America has done very well after, the Marshall Plan after World War II. And these people want to destroy all of that. That's why they're trying to break up Europe. They're trying to get out of NATO. They're trying to put all these little European countries on their own the way they were before World War II, so World War III can happen. And he's siding with some of the most notorious dictators in the world. The Syrian dictator, Bashar al-Assad, is Russia's favorite guy. And so by siding...
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Okay, and by siding with Putin, he's siding with this man who has public hangings going on as we speak right now. He is hanging people in public, just willy-nilly, extrajudicial hangings. He loves the dictator in the Philippines who is releasing police officers.
Oh, Duarte, yeah.
Yeah, Duarte, who's got these motorcycle guys, going around, and if they see somebody, using any drug, they get shot without, due process. They just get shot. This is also a hero of Donald Trump's. I mean, I would be very wary of him if I were somebody living in a place ravaged by a natural disaster like, Staten Island or New Jersey with Chris Christie closing down the bridge, or the Katrina people down in, New Orleans. But they like strong and wrong because they think if I lose, somehow they win something. So I say to them all the time, if you win, what will you have won? You won't recognize your country. And you're next.
Yes, ma'am. Just real quick, a couple of things. Have you noticed that the bigger the distraction, the bigger the theft?
The bigger the what? Theft.
Like,
yeah, because in chaos you can steal. When everything is chaotic and things are just, out of kilter, and you're disoriented and you're disinformed, because the first casualty in chaos and war is the truth, which we've already, succumbed to, then you can steal. Yes, in chaos you can steal. $9 billion just went missing in Iraq. Isn't that something?
Oh my God, you're so smart. I love you. All right. One more thing. Just as the funny aside. All right. Have you noticed that most of the people that are Republicans that need a little bit of, like, their pedigree, there are no black people anywhere in their families, or no Chinese people or whatever, they look like they need to have something added because they look like they're just before they become retarded?
Oh, I know what you're referring to, but let's not go there.
Yeah, I know.
Because I could hear I could hear the banjo music. So.
You can hear. Randy, I love you.
I love you.
You're wonderful.
Thank you, Tony.
I'm buying a podcast soon. Everybody buy a podcast.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you, Tony. Buy a stinking podcast. Yes. This is what keeps us independent and free. All right. 40 minutes after the hour.
All things Randy at RandyRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
We did it, you bastards! We're live, and it only took 2 years. Okay. All right. So we're back, we're live, and you're there, and we're here, and ain't that great? Now let me just tell you that if you want to listen whenever and wherever you'd like to listen, just go to RandiRhodes.com, click on podcasts and swag, and get your podcast commercial-free, on demand, on any device. RandiRhodes.com. Open all day, every day.
Tales of American Political History with Clinton Porter Hackney.
We've been discussing the women that moved into the American workforce during World War II and the nickname they took later. These ladies are referred to as Rosie the Riveter, a term that came from a 1942 song, but the name was used only sporadically during the war. Norman Rockwell gave the name a boost with his illustration on the cover of a Saturday Evening Post in 1943. It featured a husky woman with a rivet gun and a lunchbox. On the lunchbox was the name Rosie, and people recognized it as Rosie the Riveter from the familiar song. Yet still, the name seemed to fade away. A year earlier, the War Production Coordinating Committee of the Westinghouse Company hired an artist to create a series of posters aimed at motivating their workers during the war years. Join us again for one of those posters. This is Clinton Porter Hackney at cphackney.com.
It's Tuesday, February 7, 2017.
It's not just the fox guarding the hen house, it's the fox destroying the hen house.
400 former EPA officials tell Senate to vote no on Scott Pruitt's nomination to head the EPA. Another heat wave in the Arctic leaves scientists in stunned disbelief. Electric vehicle sales jump nearly 40% in 1 year. China to cut coal use in Beijing by another 30%. Plus,
people really do care about science.
The March for Science is on for Earth Day.
All of those marching scientists and more straight ahead. From BradBlog.com, I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
Can he tell the Forest Service to start logging our forests aggressively again to provide jobs for Americans, wealth for the Treasury, and not spend $3.5 billion a year fighting forest fires?
Good point. We wouldn't have all these expensive forest fires if we just got rid of all the forests first.
Burn it all down, baby. This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, I know you were watching the Super Bowl ads closely, and while there were no overt environmental ads, at least that I noticed, you noticed something else among those commercials.
Yes, the ads of Super Bowl 51 were a little different this year. I noticed that they showed not only diversity in people, but I also noticed diversity among car choices. The Super Bowl ads to me seemed quite remarkable because of how unremarkable hybrid and electric cars were in those ads. There weren't any really overt environmental statements. The cars were just portrayed as normal and not at all an unusual choice for average consumers in their everyday lives.
Normalizing electric vehicles, normalizing hybrid vehicles.
Exactly. And that normalization of electric cars is showing up in sales. According to a new analysis by Forbes this week, electric vehicle sales in the U.S. are climbing steadily. By the end of last year, year, with 30 different EV models available, sales of electric cars jumped nearly 40% over 2015. And more than half of the EVs sold in the U.S. across 2016 were sold in California. Of course, it's still only a drop in the bucket of total U.S. vehicle sales, but this very solid growth in electric vehicle sales occurred in spite of very low gas prices.
And don't let anyone know that all they have to do is plug in these cars and they don't have to ever buy gas again. But keep it to yourself.
Meanwhile, in politics, more than 400 former officials with the Environmental Protection Agency have signed on to a letter strongly urging the U.S. Senate to vote no on Trump's pick to head the EPA. Oklahoma Attorney General Scott Pruitt. The letter, released on Monday by the Environmental Integrity Project, says that Pruitt's record of suing the EPA to stop pollution regulations, quote, strongly suggests that he doesn't support the agency's mission of protecting public health against pollution.
You think? 400 former EPA employees. Do you think anyone in the U.S. Senate on the Republican side is going to give a damn about that?
Probably not.
Of course not. And in the U.S. House, one U.S. congressman has already proposed a bill to abolish the EPA.
But scientists are pushing back, taking inspiration from the wildly successful Women's March the day after Donald Trump's inauguration. A group of scientists have set a march for science, appropriately for Earth Day. Saturday, April 22nd in Washington, D.C., they'll rally for scientific integrity and evidence-based policy.
Yeah, well, good luck with that. I hope they have funny pink hats to wear.
There's also a People's Climate March on Washington, D.C. That's also being organized for the week later, April 29th. That will coincide with Trump's 100th day in office. And that one is being organized by a broad coalition that joined forces at the massive People's Climate March in New York City. Remember back in 2014? All of these groups are now working together at the intersection of climate, environmental justice, Native American rights, and civil rights organizations.
You said that's going to take place on his what day in office?
100th.
Oy.
If we get that far.
Right.
And now extreme weather hits the Arctic again. Arctic temperatures this week are forecast to soar to 50 to 60 degrees warmer than normal in the dead of winter. Sea ice in the Arctic is already at a record low extent, and the Washington Post reports that this latest Arctic heat wave is so warm and of such long duration that Arctic scientists are, quote, in disbelief, stunned, and unable to explain it. Finally, some good news. China has made another big announcement on cutting out coal. The capital, Beijing, announced plans this week to cut the use of coal by an additional 30% over last year, according to Chinese state-run news media. And they've set a goal of phasing out the use of coal entirely in the next year in 6 major districts around the capital to combat dangerous air pollution.
Good for China. It's just getting kind of embarrassing for America at this point, isn't it?
Well, with the U.S. taking a step back, China's taking the step forward.
For more on all of those stories and the ones we couldn't get to, check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com. Find us and follow us on the Facebooks and the Twitters at Green News Report. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
And this has been your Green News Report.
1 step forward and 2 steps back. Nobody gets too far like that. 1 step.
For a commercial-free, on-demand, whenever, wherever listening experience, visit RandiRhodes.com for your personal premium podcast today.
So this is great. I have to show you this little clip before the day gets completely away from me, all right? This is the drunkest person I've ever seen broadcasting, and I've seen them all, okay? I mean, when I was a young DJ, right, in New York City, there was a guy, I'll just leave him nameless because it won't mean anything to you anyway, who used to literally crawl. He would crawl from the record room where we kept the records to the studio where the microphone was and the turntables. He would crawl because he was so gone, and then sit himself up, and I guess the adrenaline would, get him when the on-air light went on, and, he was able to speak. And nobody was the wiser, but this guy is obviously just giving that guy a run for his money with the substances and the discombobulated thought processes. And of course, the only person that would fit that bill is the one and only InfoWars dude, Alex Jones, who, by the way, is being mocked on Homeland. Every time Quinn was, almost killed when he was tortured, in a Muslim nation, as he was captured as a spy. And he came back and, he's just not right in the head, Quinn. He's trying very hard. But Carrie is, taking good care, and she's trying to insert herself into Quinn's life and make him realize that he can get better. Meanwhile, he's suffering from some delusional paranoia. And all he has on in his basement home, in Carrie's basement, is Alex Jones on Homeland. It's hysterical. It's such a poke in the eye to this nutbag who I don't think, gets it. I'm not really sure, but this clip is priceless, okay? This is just absolutely priceless. Alex Jones is ready to die for Donald Trump.
So energetic, so cunning, so real, and he's having results so amazing that it just makes me be endeared to Trump. I'm ready to die for Trump at this point. And I'm already ready to die for America. It's the same feeling I have for America because he is America. You're America.
He is America.
It's the same way I get endeared to people I know that have fought hard and lost legs or arms for this country, and just how hardworking and good they are, and how compared to the average person who's lazy and doesn't care, I just feel humbled to be around those type of people because I study policy. I'm a policy wonk. And I know that Trump and Bannon really know what's happening. They're really trying to cut taxes. They're really trying to get loans to small businesses. They're really trying to get us out of carbon taxes and Obamacare. And they're doing it. They're delivering. And it's so well thought out. It's so good. I've studied history. I've covered politics for 25 years, 21 on air. And I've never seen anything like this. This is bigger than 1776 if Trump can deliver. And then I see all of the news. I've got articles today. There's tens of thousands of bureaucrats that are going to leak everything you're doing militarily and sabotage you. That's called treason. That's executionable.
Oh, my God.
He's crazy. I love him.
He's nuts. He's absolutely nuts. He's ready to die for Trump. So the question is, what's stopping you? Right? Just want to know what's stopping you. Or does this mean he's going to kill us all and you're ready to go? Because I can't figure out what that was about. I'm ready to die for Trump at this point. But Alex, if you die now, you'll never see the wall. My bleeding liberal heart doesn't want you to die. I want you to live to see the wall. I want you to live to see what your policies cause. I want you to live. I've studied history. This is bigger than 1777. If Trump can deliver. Yeah, because George Washington didn't stop the Jews and the Muslims from coming into this country. So this is bigger than 17. I've studied history. He is America. Twitler is America. The man admires killers. People who actually, let's say, support Syrian dictators who are publicly extrajudicially hanging people right now, who use chemical weapons against their own people, who invade their neighbors. He's a killer. He's a killer. I love him. He's a killer. The president of the United States currently admires the killing. He does. He admires the killing. He admires it so much that he's dying to do it. But Alex, if you're ready to die for Trump, just make sure that you press on the camera, and I guarantee you a 30 share. I can guarantee you 30 million viewers, ex post facto, after the fact. But people will see you die for Trump if you record it. And so don't let me keep you. All right, Reggie in Decatur, Georgia.
Happy Tuesday to you, Randy.
Hi.
How you doing? Buy Stinking Podcast out there.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So what's up with Donald Trump's problem? What exactly is his problem? First, he's firing acting attorney generals and attacking judges through tweets. Mr. Twitler himself is attacking judges. And now he's going after Melissa McCarthy for doing an SNL parody skit on Sean Spicer. I mean, can somebody just stop him, block him, or take his phone
You know what,
away?
Reggie? You know what he is?
Yeah.
He is somebody's angry old uncle that shows up at every freaking Thanksgiving, drinks entirely too much, except that he holds all the levers of power right now. That's all it is. It's watching some 70-year-old man who, like I said, pads around in his bathrobe and watches the shows. Oh, and by the way, John Avarosis, gotta love this. John Avarosis responded to, Trump saying that he doesn't, that he never wears a bathrobe. And can you put my screen up on? I can't make this full screen because it's a tweet feed. But if you can see this, okay, this is Donald Trump in 3 different bathrobe photos. So even this, on this little detail, this little point where he says, this is false reporting, I don't even wear a bathrobe, there he is.
And why would he put former radio talk shows, like I said, just Steve Bannon and Mike Pence in some of the most highest positions of power within the White House, or the branches of the White House? Why would he do that? They don't know anything about the politics whatsoever. They don't know anything.
All right. Just remember, there will always be the people, no matter what. If the 3 branches of government completely let you down, as 2 so far have, the judiciary, who the hell knows? I mean, I'm watching, I'm waiting. But there's always the people, and there are more of us than there are of them. So just be very sure of that. Joe in Miramar, Florida.
Hey, Randy.
Hi,
First
Joe.
time, long time. How are you?
Great. How are you? Thanks for calling us.
I got my bubble finally after all this time. So, 2 things, and I'll go quick because I know you're about to wrap up.
Mm-hmm.
Wanted to get your take on why Chris Matthews did not push back on the wonderful Kellyanne the other day.
Okay.
Second, wanted to know, I've been watching Morning Joe for a very long time, and that show seems to be in the Trump love fest. And I wanted to get your take on that. Why? Why do
Okay,
you think
so let's do Chris Matthews first. Either he had no idea what she was talking about, and wanted to, some producer to fact check it in real time, because he never heard of it before and didn't want to, or there's a possibility that because she had been on with Jake Tapper on CNN, and I think it was Jake Tapper, and threatened that, we're going to have to rethink our relationship here because Jake Tapper called her out on alternative facts, right?
Okay, right. I remember that. Yes, he did. That was a big stink.
Yes, and there is a whole thing in media, and corporate media especially, called access journalism, which means that you can't allow yourself to go too far where you get cut off from the newsmakers, the White House, the Kellyanne Conways of the world. Well, they have cut off CNN. Okay, there are no CNN has no Trump surrogates. They don't have Kellyanne Conway anymore.
Right, that was a whole brouhaha this past weekend.
Right. So it could have been something that he just let pass because he was conscious of the fact that if he pissed her off so bad, they would lose access and they would yell at him, and maybe replace him with Greta Van Susteren. I don't.
Oh boy.
Yeah, right. I mean, I don't know. I don't know why, or he had never heard of it and was wondering, what the hell is she talking?
I mean, this is supposed to be the hardball guy. I was so disappointed.
Well, he's aside from Joyanne on Saturday, he's.
Oh, I love her. Thank you for having her on.
Oh, thank her for being on. I mean,
fabulous.
Yeah, she's amazing. But no, I mean, I love him because he doesn't take any crap from anybody, not from our side, not from any other side, not from the middle. So I don't think he heard of it, or he was told, handle her with kid gloves. Because I've seen other interviews with Kellyanne on that channel, and they were just drooling over her. They were just so...
Yeah, they do. They love her.
Yeah, they love her. So, yeah, I guess the memo had been received. See you tomorrow.
Judge Neil Gorsuch of the United Supreme Court to be of the United States Supreme Court.
Or something like that. Trump's nominee for the Supreme Court, not a big fan of federal agencies. Former ExxonMobil CEO, now in charge of U.S. diplomacy. Republican senators change rules to ram through Trump's EPA pick. Plus, Standing Rock Sioux gear up for another court battle against the Dakota Access Pipeline.
All of those battles and more straight ahead. From BradBlog.com, I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
You are looking at a sterling conservative jurist who could, at 49, be on the court for 30, 35 years. Think about that.
Think about that. I can't stop having nightmares about that. This is your
Go to RandyRhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.